Welcome back to Spitballin Cards. In today's video, it's a rare upload where we record the same day because we're going to be talking about the ALCS and the NLCS and the way things are rolling. The ALCS may be over really soon. So we need to get this video out tonight, which is Monday, to discuss it. It's the second game. The Mariners are up 3-0 in the first inning already. Julio hit a 3-run bomb. Give a shout out to Scotty B Cards. That was his pick to click this year, beginning of the year. Looked really, really bad until about halfway through. But other than that, we're talking about that series, and we'll discuss the Dodgers series, which starts tonight as well. So hopefully you can watch this as it's all happening. So my first question for you guys is, how do we feel about the division series? There's a couple players whose cards may have been impacted. I haven't looked. Maybe Ty could pull some of those up. Who are the players you were the most impressed with that may have hobby relevance? I can lead. Roki Sasaki's one that I was impressed with. He's I think that'll benefit his cards based off of how he came in and has just been all over the place. So, which is great. Jeff, who's the guy that you've been impressed with?
There've been a few, and as a Brewer fan, I have to take exception to you saying the Dodgers series starts tonight because it's also involves the Brewers. Very excited for that series. It should be a good one. It's a very much a David and Goliath. $350 million payroll versus $122 million payroll. In fact, I heard that the Dodgers tax bill is greater than the Brewers' entire payroll this year. So it will be fun to see how the average Joes of Milwaukee can match up against the Hollywood guys. As far as the Brewers go, another pitcher who was a little bit shaky at the end of the regular season, Jacob Misiorowski, and he really has redeemed himself in the playoffs. Kind of like Sasaki coming in relief, although a little bit different, long relief more for Miz, but he's really redeeming himself, and it's fun to see that. So that should have a positive effect on his card prices, or at least stop the pitcher slide that they've been on.
I'll pull up his Bowman Chrome prices, but yeah, it was good to see him pitch well. Good to see some pitchers actually have some good outings. How about Chourio? How's he doing? I know he had a couple home runs and everything.
Yeah, he's definitely not overwhelmed by the moment. His hamstring is a little tweaked, so he doesn't have the same kind of speed that he normally does. So there's a couple balls he would usually beat out that he hasn't, but he still looked good in the outfield. He's played some great defense. He's rises to the moment. So I'm excited to see how he does in this series, just hoping that hamstring holds up because we definitely need him as good as he can be.
As the Brewers fan of the group, how confident are you against the Dodgers? They are actually 6-0 against the Dodgers in the regular season. So there has to be some level of confidence there.
They've dominated this regular season against the Dodgers. But as we saw, the Dodgers were just a picture of bad health all year. So they're hoping to have people back. Kershaw's really been struggling. Is he on the roster? I didn't even see the Dodgers roster for this series, but he was rough. The biggest thing for me that is disappointing is that the Brewers aren't going to have Brandon Woodruff. We've been basically counting on him for the last 3 years and paying him while he's been out just to be ready for the playoffs for this year. And it looked like he was going to be, and he's not, or he's definitely not on the roster for this series. Maybe he'll be back. So that's the biggest disappointment for me and the biggest cause for concern, because our pitching depth is pretty sparse, and we're going to be going with a lot of bullpen games, openers. Even tonight, Aaron Ashby's starting game 1, so it's not a typical it's not a typical league championship series where you're getting aces against each other right off the top. So the Brewers are going to have to do it in different ways, but they've shown all year that they can do it. So I think I like their chances. Maybe I'm too much of a homer, but I think they're going to win.
Yeah, I'm not saying the Dodgers are a slam dunk here. You know, the Brewers are really good. They're the average Joes, but they have the best record in baseball. They had that bye. They beat the Dodgers every single time they faced them this year, so it's tough to say it's a slam dunk. Phil, what are your thoughts on everything?
I would say from the last round, who impressed me the most, where I might act and buy that person's cards this month, it's a player that was eliminated, which is the recipe or the formula I like to follow, where I don't have to worry about the guy being in the headlines anymore. But I think there's going to be some long-lasting demand for him, especially as it carries into next year. And this is arguably the best pitcher in the majors over the last 2 years. Skubal, he's not cheap right now, A lot of his stuff's probably double where it was in April and probably 3x where it was a year ago. And he's already 28 years old. If you look at his total sort of volumes, his career stats, it doesn't really jump out at you as like a Hall of Fame type resume because of the innings, the Ks, the volumes just aren't there. But if we're talking a guy that could win three Cy Youngs in a row, like there's no precedent of anybody winning 3 Cy Youngs and not being in the Hall of Fame, right? Like that peak would say a lot, and especially given some of the new innings numbers that we're going to see based on the generational changes we've seen to the pitching position, guys getting capped at 6 innings and 210 innings for the year. I think there could be some upside with Skubal's prices, even though he's, again, more expensive, way more expensive than he was a year ago. I think that the Blue Jays not having Bo Bichette, their lineup doesn't quite have the depth for a team that doesn't have like a clear top 2 like starting pitchers. I know Gausman, he's sort of a shell of his former self. He doesn't quite throw as hard. He doesn't have the strikeout numbers. He did rediscover one of his offerings this year. That's why he's been like much better than he was last year. Other than that, I mean, it's like Yesevich and Shane Bieber, again, shell of his former self. I don't know. And it's easy to say that now, right? Like they had the home field advantage. They might be going down 2 games, losing 2 home games, and then facing a lineup that actually looks pretty strong for once. The Mariners this year, they finally put it together from an offensive standpoint. Raleigh, Jorge Polanco has been really hot. Of course, JRod, he's been super hot as well. We were hoping, well, I was sort of hoping that Raleigh would get bounced from the playoffs. People would stop talking about him, and maybe I'd be able to sneak in and take one of his cards. But that's not going to happen with him. It's not going to happen with JRod. National League, yeah, Chourio again, super impressive in October, just like he was last year. He's only 21 years old too. So you can look at his line from this year: OPS, slugging, batting average, home runs and steals. I was expecting something closer to like 30-30. He was closer to 20-20, but a kid that's still 21 years old. So even though he didn't necessarily improve too much on what he did last year, growth isn't always linear. And I think the future is still bright for him.
And he did miss a month too with that hamstring injury. So it was still nice to see him get 2020, the youngest ever to do 2020 back-to-back.
I'm glad you brought up peaks, Phil, because pitching is going to be that way, I think, moving forward. I don't think we're going to see the dominant 60, 70, 80 WAR pitchers very often. It may happen still, for sure. Skubal may pitch great into his 40s and have his arm not need Tommy John. That could always happen. But regardless, these peaks are going to be more important than longevity for starting pitchers, especially because of the innings that they are not throwing. It's never going to be that way with counting stats. So if he does get one more Cy Young next year, his Hall of Fame candidacy becomes very intriguing. And I think he'll probably get in with 3 Cy Youngs, which I know is very early, and you could argue against it, and I would be fine if you disagreed with us. But I think that's a real possibility, which is great for Ty, because Ty has some of Skubal's cards.
And the fact that he didn't pitch that much early on, he might be able to pitch longer later in his 30s.
Totally.
Yeah, I do have some of his cards. You know, he's the kind of pitcher who I think his career is going to have to evolve unless he's able to fight Father Time for a while with velocity. And the reason I say that is he's a strike pitcher. He throws strikes. His attitude is, I'm going to throw my best pitch and challenge you. And that's why every once in a while he has these outings where, you know, he gets beat up. I guess every pitcher does, but he's got nasty stuff. The thing he has working for him big time, I think, is his changeup is arguably the best pitch in baseball. Statistically, it's the best pitch in baseball. And so, you know, he doesn't completely rely on his, you know, fastball, which he can dial up to 101, 102 even at times. But I'm excited. I don't know what the Tigers are going to do with him long term, if anything. So I'm just going to try to enjoy this ride while we have him and root for him no matter what, no matter where he goes.
That was a question I had for you, Ty, because I saw online how he's a free agent at the end of next year, right?
Yeah.
So are they going to pull the same thing that the Brewers did with Corbin Burns and just get a big return for him right now? Like, is that a better future for the Tigers, or is having a multi-year Cy Young winner more important than that in your eyes for the Tigers?
I guess, like, from my perspective, if I knew that they weren't going to sign him to a long-term deal, it makes sense to trade him and get a haul. Try to get a haul, and roll the dice. You know, they've got a really solid pipeline, like the second or third best, you know, prospect system in baseball. I don't know. I don't like to think about it, to be totally honest. They asked the Tigers GM or one of the guys during an interview, you know, what are you going to do with him? And he just was like, no comment. Like, you know, he's like, respectfully, no comment. Like, I can't, you know, I'm not going to go there. So it's Scott Harris.
It'll be interesting. I'm sorry that your Tigers lost. It was a great game, though, Ty. Great game in the.
It was a crazy game. My oldest Roman was up with me the whole time until 1:15 in the morning, and we just kept going. Just drive in a freaking run. Just drive in a run, and this game can be over. And I don't know. Once we got past the ninth inning, I knew our odds weren't good because they had a lot of starting pitching depth to throw at us, and we were run out of pitchers. So
yeah, the moment we saw Tommy Kahnle coming in, it's like, that's not good. That's
not
good.
Even my 9-year-old said that. He's like, Tommy Kahnle, this game's over. He's like, yep, you've watched enough of the games with me.
I was gonna say he's watched a lot of
the All-Star break.
Uh-huh.
Earlier in the year, Tommy Kahnle was like untouchable, but I don't know. So I pulled up actually while we were doing this. You may have seen me grimace visibly because I was typing a bunch of names in to pull up some price movements specifically for players in the championship series, and I accidentally like closed the tab and like lost everything, but I got it all back. So this is kind of the last 14 days. No surprise to see Trey Savage up 35% after his incredible outing. Polanco was the one that stood out to me. His numbers weren't particularly good in that divisional series, but he had the big hits. He had 2 solo home runs in game 2 on Skubal, and then he had the game-winning hit, you know, in the 15th inning in game 5. So he's up 25%. Scott, you mentioned Roki. He's up 25%. And then just kind of scrolling down from there, I'm honestly surprised that Vladdy's not up a lot more overall. But I know some of his cards are up quite a bit more than that, but it looks like kind of just maybe the distribution isn't quite there. A lot of sales though, $107,000 in sales in the last 2 weeks on his stuff. And then everybody else kind of flat. We scroll all the way down. Let me actually increase the pagination. And I'm surprised. Maybe I'm not surprised Kershaw's not down more, but boy, just playoff performance.
It's really unfortunate.
Another big hit. So where's Ohtani on here?
He's even.
He's even.
People are waiting to see what happens with Ohtani. We were talking about Ohtani before we started to record. This is a very big series for him. I think, Phil, you mentioned this before with Mike Trout. Sometimes it's better if a player doesn't make the playoffs for their cards because they can get to the playoffs and the entire great season gets completely neglected when they have a poor performance. Ohtani went 1 for 18 in the DS. Let's see in the CS if he can do better. If he does not do better in the CS and the Dodgers lose, he might get branded as a playoff slacker versus a playoff performer, which can impact cards, as we've seen with others. Is that a concern for you, Phil?
I'm watching all these playoff games, and I'm like, all these individual performances that we're seeing, like Jorge Polanco being the standout guy and Trey Savage, just like, this is so dumb that we're actually like trying to link these performances into like buying and selling decisions. Like, this is just a small sample size. This is exactly the way it always is. Some players are hot, some players aren't. Just because you're the top player on the team, especially with regards to like hobby values, doesn't mean that the team is going to lean on you or that you're expected to carry them, really. So that translates to, the accountability that you don't have as a star player making the final stage. And then if you collapse, it's like more of a short-term blip with regards to like your total, hobby impact. But yeah, with Ohtani, I'm looking at him and I'm like, oh, it kind of looks lost from a hitting standpoint. He had a tough assignment against Christopher Sanchez a couple times, faced a lot of lefties in that series. And he did have the outing where it ended up being a pretty good outing. He had a rough first inning. He ended up going 6 with 9 strikeouts. If it wasn't for that, like that sort of showing should have hurt his hobby prices. He should be negative a little bit. But then there's like this other side of things where there's like kind of a maniacal craze on Ohtani right now. And this is outside of what he's even doing on the field, where a lot of people are just buying Ohtani and they've got like the FOMO. Probably a lot of people that are just buying as their first cards of him, maybe people that predominantly collect and follow other sports. So I think like part of the reason why he's still flat is because of that as well. People are just like flooding into Ohtani right now. I don't even know if that has to do with his performance. And maybe some of it's anticipation for, okay, we expect him to be in the World Series and maybe he'll do something great there as a two-way player. So that could be it as well. But Judge, overall right now, I know Judge made a critical error. He struck out in a key spot. Other than that, like I would be way more happy at what Judge did, even though his team exited quicker than what Ohtani's shown so far, if I was a holder of both of their cards. Because that's kind of what I'm looking for. If I'm holding a player, I don't care how far the team gets. I just want the player not to embarrass themselves. And again, you could argue that Judge did, but he also did some great things as well.
This year?
Hit 500 in the playoffs this year. So,
what do you think Judge embarrassed himself this year?
No. I'm just saying, like, that's my reason for preferring Judge over Ohtani. Like, I'd not preferring them. Like, I'm like preferring what they did in the postseason. Like, I think what Judge did was more special, even factoring in his few blips versus what Ohtani did. And that's what I'm looking for. I don't care about the team success that the player belongs on, because that doesn't really matter. That's out of their control. Yes, I'd rather have them win the World Series, especially if they don't have one already. For Judge, that's even more important. But other than that, and maybe like a World Series MVP, maybe like a really like dazzling performance in the ALCS or NLCS that gets him that MVP, which you can't bank on. It's just too small of a sample size. It usually goes to somebody else. I tend to kind of tune out for the playoffs and whether or not that impacts my buying and selling.
Yeah, I just to piggyback on that a little bit, I think it's a little bit dangerous with Ohtani. Like Phil said, his market is so saturated now. There's so many people coming in, and I think for a lot of those people, team performance will impact it. Getting a World Series title, holding up the hardware, I think that's will hold up his prices, even if he's not as successful as some might hope. But if the team does go out early and he has another poor performance, then maybe we could see a little bit of negativity there.
Yeah. We've seen with other players, Mookie Betts is an example. They won the World Series in 2018, but he was not particularly good or impactful. And people discussed that. And last year, Ohtani was not good in the World Series. He hurt his shoulder. So there was some, margin for error there. We were okay with it, gave him some grace. But this year, if he's healthy and can't perform and then they get eliminated, or even if they do well, we see that he kind of gotten carried the last little bit. I think it matters for him. But at the same time, Phil, you're right. We're going to discuss Ohtani's pricing in more depth in our Patreon episode. And big exciting news about Patreon, by the way, we do officially have a Discord on the way. Phil made it. There's 2 members. It's Jeff and I so far. But we're going to have that live, ready to go on November 1st. So if you do sign up for our Patreon, you'll also get access to 1 video a week, which this week's going to be all about Ohtani's pricings and all the crazy auctions going on and basically everybody buying his cards, as well as the access to the Patreon where you'll have buy-sell trades and other things as well, like general discussions with like-minded collectors who like Spitballin cards. So keep an eye out for that. The link to the Patreon's in the description. So, okay, so who else? Who else do we think could have an impact in the NLCS? The Brewers. Jeff, you are the biggest Brewers guy I know, truly. Who is the player that you think really could have the biggest impact for their card market? Phil, you're right. Everybody be rational. Don't buy cards because of postseason alone. It feels good in the moment. Think of Adolis Garcia and Randy Arozarena, how good they were. Their cards went up and then they dropped. And that's how it's going to be. But Jeff, Christian Yelich, is he someone you believe in, or is it someone else?
Yeah, I was gonna mention Yelich. We've already talked a little bit about Chourio and Mizorowski, and those are the 2 most hobby relevant names. Even guys who have had good seasons, like William Contreras, he didn't have a top 5 MVP season like he did last year. They aren't exactly card relevant, and there's a lot of the so-called average Joes that are in a similar boat. Maybe a guy like Andrew Vaughn gets a little more recognition. I know Phil's been eyeing up some of his big cards, King Vaughn, as they call him in Milwaukee now.
Phil's been eyeing Andrew Vaughn up all the time lately. Totally agree.
Realistically, I think it could be big for Yelich because he hasn't been on this stage since 2018. Well, nobody on the Brewers has, but he's finally put some healthy numbers together. His back has held up. He's played a lot of games this year. It's the most similar playing style to his MVP years. So I feel like he could really get a boost if he has a successful LCS and leads the team on. He's still in that potential Hall of Fame conversation. Depends how long he can play. With his history of back injuries, it might limit his career as he gets into his mid to late 30s. But for some reason, he's gotten speedier. Stolen bases have become more of a part of his repertoire the last couple of years. And he's been moving into kind of a leadoff hitter as well. So I don't know. I think it's going to be exciting to see Yelich play the series, and he would be the guy who might get an uptick in his cards just because of the visibility on the national stage.
If the Brewers win the World Series, I think Christian Yelich has some of the biggest opportunity to rise just because he will be the face of this era. I know Chourio's there, but Yelich has been there since 2018 and really kind of turned the tide of the Brewers franchise and their hopes. He could be like an Andrew McCutchen for the Pirates, but more collected for the Brewers because he brought a championship to the city. Think of like a Anthony Rizzo type player where he's not going to be a Hall of Famer, but his cards have good demand for the Cubs. I think that could be Yelich. And I think that's intriguing because if you look at his cards, a lot of them aren't very expensive. Maybe they've gone up, and I haven't looked in the last few months. So maybe I'm completely off base there. But
they're still pretty cheap.
I love that angle. But he's the one guy where this World Series really would impact legacy more than most. Like the Dodgers, they all have a World Series. So it's not really going to impact them per se. But Yelich in the NL absolutely could get benefit from.
Yeah, and the other Brewers are young enough that there's hope that they could get back in the next decade or something. But for Yelich, this is his best chance.
What are his prices at? Do you know off the top of your head, Jeff?
I don't. I've picked up a couple this year. I picked up one of his Bowman First Gold parallels a couple months back. His prices were just floundering. And partially maybe it's because they're all Marlins cards. They're not Brewers cards. So a lot of his Brewer collectors stick to his Brewer cards, but it could be some good opportunities there.
They're affordable.
Yeah.
This is so cheap.
They're affordable. Not saying you should buy them because if he doesn't win anything, then I don't think it matters how affordable they are.
Yeah, but like $22 for this guy's for his Bowman Auto Raw. Like that's crazy.
There's an SGC 9 listed for $79 with a 10 auto.
Yeah.
His blue Bowman Chrome BGS 9.5 is at $152 the day left. So I'm interested to see where that one ends up.
Yeah, I would stick to his better cards if you're going to go the Yelich route.
And I'm guessing his 2013 cards. I love Christian Yelich's cards. He has a lot of really great cards, really great era of cards. So if you get the good stuff, it's very limited and it's really cool looking. So I love his Topps Chrome as an example. I've always been a big fan of that Topps Chrome autograph. So that's another good one. But
update parallels like the camo, solid one. I own that at one point. With Yelich, what I would do personally, if ComC was like a platform that had more high-end stuff or just provided more liquidity in general, that's like where I'd play Yelich because I'd want to be out of his stuff before the end of October.
In and out.
Personally.
Even if he wins a World Series, especially if he wins a World Series, Phil would want to be out of Christian Yelich's cards. So, anyways, a very intriguing player. All right, ALCS, anybody we need to talk about? Vladdy, I think, is one that could benefit. He had a bad game after the Yankees lose all that big stuff. He's not played well yet. But when you're talking about the Mariners versus the Blue Jays score, they've scored 2 runs. So it's now 3-2 against Logan Gilbert. So there's a chance. Vlad is 0 for 5 now. We'll see if that matters if he has a bad ALCS. But I do think he could have, his name be remembered really well if he has a couple more.
We've seen some big sales in his cards even since the last series. I think his Superfractor rookie auto just sold for $55,000.
Oh, did it? I didn't see that.
Yeah. Healthy sale.
I don't know you guys. Like I was looking at Teapot's list of guys that are up from market movers, and I'm thinking, and I was going to pose the question to you guys, like, are there any players here that you would actually buy that are up? And after you say no to all of those players, would you hold any of those players? And I think Vlad might be one of them that you guys might agree you might hold him because he's not up that much, as you guys mentioned earlier. But he's one that I'd probably still sell.
I might hold Roki right now, actually, believe it or not. Well, even though he's up 25%, I think this could be building up to next year, especially if Roki closes and they win the World Series, and then he's going to be starting pitcher next year. I think people could get behind his cards. So I could see myself holding Roki if I had some of his good cards. I don't think I'd be selling it.
What's the ratio of Yamamoto to Sasaki prices? That should be.
Well, I've got one of those in a would you rather
to market moves. Oh, okay.
Yamamoto is older, so keep that in mind. That impacts prices very heavily, but I don't know if it should. Yes. I will say Vlad's Bowman Chrome stuff has always been expensive. It's like never really come down for whatever reason, but he has a lot of really cheap 2019 rookie cards that are intriguing to me. Not saying they're a good buy again, but they're just intriguing in comparison to his Bowman Chrome stuff. I know his SSP, the holding the ball in the dugout, I think those have all sold, but those are like $250. I think that was a good price. I ever paid those prices on those. But yeah, Vlad's intriguing to me.
Somebody made a comment speaking about Vlad on a recent video, I think a couple weeks back, about how would prices increase from playoff performances if there's a bunch of buy it now listings, a ton of them on eBay, and they're already priced kind of close to market, because it's almost like they all have to sell for new comps, higher comps to be established. And I think that's one of the challenges. I brought that up to the group here. I'm like, that is one of the challenges. You do need all of those reasonably priced bin cards to sell if you have that specific card of that player. So ideally, you would target maybe a different card. Bowman Chrome Auto is going to be where, like, I think a lot of people look to speculate first. And it helps. Like a guy like Cam Schlittler, no rookie cards yet. No Topps cards yet. Just like Bowman Chrome and Bowman Chrome Autos.
These are asking the same way as well.
Yeah, exactly. Like that's why the markets of those guys are capable of jumping so quickly, and because they start so low, because it's just like a pitcher that people don't have a lot of information on. Heading into the playoffs, you probably didn't even know that Cam Schlittler would get a guaranteed start. And same thing with Savage probably. So that's a little bit different, but you always gotta jump on the opportunity when it strikes. Schlittler looked great against the Red Sox. I had some doubts, and then against the next team he faced, the Blue Jays, he still pitched pretty well, but he had like 2 strikeouts instead of 12 or whatever. That's not gonna do it. That's still gonna make those prices not come back down to where they were, but at least come back down halfway.
Yeah. No, it's an interesting question. Don't tell that theory to any Fanatics auction, because everything on that always goes over market regardless of what's listed. But it is a challenge. I mean, a lot of the players don't have those massive spikes, and so the high population cards are never going to be the ones that boom. They're always the last ones to move up. So if there are quite a few quite a few cards listed, just wait, because they're not going to move. All right, Ty, what are you showing us here?
I was just looking at their Bowman Orange Autos rookies for Sasaki and Yamamoto. Now this one is Pop 1 that just sold recently for a little under $5K.
Both of them, I think, have 2 versions, which is stupid. But just be aware of that.
Yeah, you're right. Here's one. And then the other one is...
At least with Otani, he was hitting and pitching. I don't know why they did that. Well, I know why they did it, for money, but I wish they hadn't.
They seem to be similarly priced overall. There are some notable Yamamoto sales, like this one. It's a Superfractor non-auto, Superfractor auto from Chrome Update sticker. But
who would you guys buy right now? Yamamoto or Roki? Who are you taking?
So Roki, has he done it in I know he's had like 2-3 inning stretches. Has he had in September, did he have like a 5-inning start? 6-inning start?
No.
So I need to look into his StatCast to see the spin rate of his fastball and the velocity. That's something that was also a concern, and the location. If he's fixed all 3 of those things and he has that wipeout splitter, then what's the third pitch? If he doesn't have that yet, another thing you've got to watch out for. And what's the age difference?
So here's Yamamoto. He is 26, heading into his age 27 season, while Roki is 23, heading into his age 24 season. So 2 years difference? No, 3 years difference. 3 years difference. So pretty good age difference here. Roki's young enough where he could build a Hall of Fame career. I don't know if Yamamoto quite is, but maybe he is with how starting pitchers are being valued nowadays.
Do think Phil's onto something though with the overall like pitch arsenal. Yamamoto's more like Yu Darvish and can throw a whole bunch of different pitches, and Roki's pretty much, 2 with a slider he throws sometimes. I worry about pitchers who rely heavily on their splitter. Obviously, both of these guys do. But Yamamoto throws like 9 different pitches.
And they're all elite.
They're all insane.
And then if we go to Roki's not going to make sense. So Roki, this is what I've heard from other Dodgers fans. I don't really know if it's true because I don't pay that much attention to this type of stuff. But it was one of those things where he didn't really want the Dodgers tinkering with his mechanics. And so he was having those issues, and then he got hurt and all that stuff. But coming back from injury, he allowed them to tinker with his mechanics, and it fixed everything. It fixed his velocity. It fixed all of his braking stuff. And so if that's the case, and he really did fix it by just adjusting his hips, which is what apparently it was, this does not indicate where he's at right now, which is a challenge with Baseball Savant, is it's a whole sample size of a season. I don't think you can do it from a specific time forward, which I wish you could like you can with Fangraphs, which is difficult.
I have a feeling you can look at like per start stats. I just don't know where to find that.
Yeah, I don't know it as well. Maybe you can. It'd be cool if you can. I'd love to learn it. But
because you've got guys breaking that down for like fantasy analysts being like, oh, his induced vertical break was this for this start.
That's true. That's
so
true.
They must know spin.
But anyways, those are the guys that are intriguing to me. Vlad, I'm always interested in Vlad, see what he can do. Roki, if I had his cards still, I'd hold them. I probably wouldn't be buying his cards right now. So how about you guys? Anybody you're watching carefully the next few series? To wrap it up, who's the one guy you're watching? Let's do that.
Roman Anthony. Seriously.
Besides the guys we've talked about, I'll say Mookie. It'd be nice if for Mookie if he could finish strong to go into next year with some momentum.
I'm always happy to see Mookie do good. Ty, who's your guy?
Blake Snell.
Blake Snell's intriguing.
I don't know. I'm watching Cal Raleigh. I'm watching Cal Raleigh, but Blake Snell is interesting. He's pitched really well so far.
I like Snell. Yeah.
Blake Snell has 2 Cy Youngs. He's kind of in the boat of Tarek Skubal. But Tarek Skubal's been better outside of his good years, unlike Blake Snell.
Snell won't get a third. Skubal could, in my opinion.
Definitely.
So
Cal, I want to ask you about Cal. Has he done enough for you to want to buy his cards?
Not now that he knocked my Tigers out. No.
No, not buying.
Not right now. No way.
Waiting for a pullback and won't go too crazy, It'll be a 0.5% allocation of my total portfolio.
There we go. That's the answer we wanted to hear. All right, guys. Thanks for watching. Check out the Patreon if you're interested in hearing more, and we'll see you in the next video.